Morning, fourth graders. Today we're going to be continuing talking about the ecosystem. So as you see here, I have an ecosystem that I made for you guys with a bunch of different environmental parts into it, like frogs, logs, algae. We're going to be taking a look at that. So what is an ecosystem, you may ask? An ecosystem is like a community where all living and non-living things work together. The living things like the frogs, the worms, the algae are all called organisms. Non-living things like the sun, cloud, and logs all support these resources. Let's take a look at some of these of the ecosystem that we have on our project. So first we're going to take a look at the sun. The sun provides energy to the plants, to the trees, to the flowers, and to the algae. Plants use the sunlight to make their food through the process called photosynthesis. Remember we talked about that word? That's a vocab word. This energy is like the starting point for their food chain. Trees and flowers. So as you can see here, we have a tree and a flower, all part of our ecosystem. Trees and flowers are producers. They create food for other organisms to eat. Flowers are the main thing for rabbits to eat. Trees also provide oxygen, which animals like frogs and fish all breathe. Frogs are consumers. They eat the insects and worms, keeping the populations in check. Frogs also serve as a food chain for larger animals like fish and birds and snakes that are all part of our ecosystem. Worms are decomposers. They break down dead plants and animals, turning them into nutrients for the soil so our flowers can grow. So we're going to take a look at the log now. The log may not seem that important, but it is. When a tree falls, a log becomes a habitat for another animal, like a rabbit and also fungi. Over time, it decomposes, returning nutrients to the soil. And then clouds. We have quite a few clouds here on our ecosystem that we made. And clouds bring water to the ecosystem like rain. Water is very essential for all living things. It helps plants grow, animals to stay hydrated, and algae to thrive in the ponds. Part of our ecosystem. Energy starts with the sun. Plants like trees, flowers, and algae use the sunlight to make food. Frogs and other animals eat plants that are growing from the sun, gaining energy. When animals and plants die, worms and other decomposers is a vocab word we talked about, break down and return nutrients to the soil for plants to use again and grow. This cycle keeps the ecosystem balanced for all things to work together and thrive. So now let's talk about what happens if one part of the ecosystem is missing. So let's think about it. If there were no worms, the soil would lose its nutrients and plants wouldn't be able to grow as good. If there were no frogs, insects might overpopulate. Every piece of the ecosystem is connected. It's kind of like a puzzle. When one part is affected, the whole system is affected by it. Before we wrap up, we are going to be making an ecosystem as a class. You and partners are going to be working together to create an ecosystem. So you can use cardboard from around the room, you could use colored paper, and you could use your technology to print out different types of ecosystems. You can be as creative as you want, and you're going to work together for today and tomorrow to finish your ecosystem. Before we wrap it up, let's remember that every part of the ecosystem is important. From the tiniest worm to the mighty sun, each play a role in our... Alrighty, for our lab portion of this lesson, we are going to be making our own ecosystem. So whether you're at home or in the classroom, you're going to want to grab some cardboard, some colored paper, and your technology. So what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to get whatever colored paper you want. So for mine, I have a blue sky, so I grab blue paper. For my grass, I have green paper, and then I also have a pond in here with blue paper. And then on your technology, you're going to want to pull that out, and you can start Googling different types of ecosystem organisms that you want in your ecosystem. So for mine, I have some algae, some grass, a sun, a tree. I have a frog here, and then I have a worm, because a worm is a decomposer, along with some lily pads. I have a bass in here in my pond. I also have a turtle. So you're going to want to print out and cut out whatever parts of your ecosystem that you would like. I prefer that you guys have at least 7 parts of the ecosystem, different organisms, and you would also include a sun, because the sun is the most important part of our ecosystem. And then, yeah, we guys can get to work, and we'll come back and gather together.